It melts perfectly every time. It never goes moldy. It sits in a wrapper for months. But it is not quite what it appears to be. Processed cheese is legally and compositionally distinct from natural cheese. Most regulatory frameworks treat them as different product categories entirely. What's really inside processed cheese? That perfect melt is not accidental. It is engineered through emulsifying salts. Natural cheese uses fermentation, enzymes, and aging. Processed cheese uses a different industrial process. Processed cheese was first developed commercially to extend shelf life for mass distribution. The ingredient list reveals emulsifying salts, preservatives, pH regulators, and added colorants. A processed cheese product may contain substantially less natural cheese than most consumers assume. Natural cheese begins with milk, bacterial cultures, rennet, salt, pressing, and aging. Aging defines natural cheese's flavor complexity. Proteolytic enzymes produce sharpness and aroma. An aged natural cheese has fewer than 5 ingredients. One of the most nutritionally complex fermented foods produced with the fewest inputs. The contrast between natural and processed ingredient lists illustrates how different the two products are. Processed cheese manufacturing begins with grinding natural cheese and heating to 80 degrees Celsius. Emulsifying salts release casein proteins from their calcium-bound structure. This allows proteins to uniformly coat fat droplets, producing a smooth, stable emulsion. Water is added to most formulations during manufacturing, diluting the natural cheese content. Natural cheddar, 33% fat, 25% protein. A processed slice, 22% fat, 16% protein. Lower fat and protein per gram reflects added water, while sodium and additives are substantially higher. Beyond emulsifying salts and water, formulations include whey, non-cheese dairy, and flavorings. The uniform orange color comes from added colorants, typically annatto or beta-carotene. Annatto is a natural pigment from the achiote tree approved in most jurisdictions. High-temperature processing destroys natural cheese flavor compounds, added back as flavoring. With manufacturing established, we turn to the ingredients most worth examining closely. Sodium citrate is one of the most widely used emulsifying salts in processed cheese. It functions as a chelating agent, a pH buffer, and a protein emulsifier simultaneously. Phosphate salts work through the same calcium chelating mechanism as sodium citrate. Inorganic phosphate additives in processed cheese are absorbed more efficiently than natural food phosphate. Organic phosphate in natural foods is absorbed at 40 to 60%. But we have something to compare that to. Inorganic phosphate additives in processed foods are absorbed at greater than 90%. This higher bioavailability is clinically relevant for individuals with chronic kidney disease. For healthy individuals, additive phosphate is not a documented concern. For kidney disease, it is. A 20-gram processed cheese slice typically contains 250 to 400 milligrams of sodium. Natural cheddar at the same serving size contains approximately 130 to 180 milligrams. Sodium is the most nutritionally significant quantitative difference between the two products. A processed cheese slice on a burger adds to a meal that can exceed 1,200 milligrams sodium. Across multiple daily occasions, cumulative sodium from processed cheese alone can be substantial. Sodium content is declared on labels. But research finds most people underestimate their daily intake. Sorbic acid and potassium sorbate inhibit mold and yeast growth, extending shelf life significantly. The preservative function serves a genuine purpose, preventing contamination during distribution. Natural cheddar, once opened, keeps 3 to 6 weeks refrigerated. Individually wrapped processed cheese slices, often 3 to 6 months. A genuine functional advantage. Emulsifying salts buffer processed cheese pH to 5.4 to 5.8, a range that inhibits pathogens. Natural cheese is a living food pad. Processed cheese is, by design, microbiologically inert. This stability eliminates both spoilage risk and any probiotic potential. Per 20-gram serving, natural cheddar has 82 calories, 7 grams fat, 145 millicalcium, 130 millisodium. Processed cheese slice, 60 calories, 4-gram fat, 120 millicalcium, 310 millisodium. With the ingredient picture established, we turn to what research says about processed cheese and health. For decades, dietary guidance warned that saturated fat in dairy increased cardiovascular risk. More recent research has substantially complicated that picture. A 2017 European Journal of Epidemiology meta-analysis included 29 cohort studies and 938,000 participants. It found no significant association between total dairy consumption and cardiovascular disease mortality. Some researchers propose dairy fat behaves differently due to the food matrix affecting metabolism. Fat droplets encapsulated within protein membranes may modulate cholesterol responses differently. The dairy fat globule membrane contains bioactive compounds, including sphingomyelin. Processing disrupts this native fat globule structure. Whether this affects outcomes is understudied. Natural cheese is a fermented dairy product producing conjugated linoleic acid and vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 in aged natural cheeses has research associations with cardiovascular and bone health. K2 is substantially reduced in processed cheese because fermentation is halted during manufacturing. Several large cohort studies found neutral or modestly protective associations with natural cheese. Research distinguishing natural from processed cheese finds different associations in each category. Processed cheese consumption is strongly associated with fast food intake and lower diet quality. Health associations may partly reflect the overall dietary pattern more than the cheese specifically. Most commercial processed cheese products are classified as Nova Group 4 ultra-processed foods. Natural aged cheese, Group 3. Large cohort studies linking ultra-processed foods to adverse outcomes would include processed cheese slices. The cheese category spans from 4-ingredient aged natural cheese at one end to shelf-stable processed spreads with 15+ ingredients at the other. Processed cheese occupies a strategic position in the industrial food supply chain. Longer shelf life reduces waste. Consistent melt reduces quality variation in large-scale food service. Processed cheese is used in schools, hospitals, and large-scale catering, where logistics dominate. Fast food, predominantly processed. Fine dining, predominantly natural. Home cooking, more mixed. Processed cheese exposure is higher in populations with greater fast food and convenience food intake. The perception that processed cheese is more economical is more reliably true in food service quantities. A block of natural cheddar sliced at home typically provides equivalent cost per serving. The cost difference at household scale is often smaller than consumers expect. A child eating a processed cheese slice daily consumes 300–400 milligrams more sodium than with natural cheese. That is roughly 15 to 20% of a child's daily sodium limit from one substitution. Processed cheese. Uniform melt. Months of shelf life. Consistent portioning. Natural cheese. Lower sodium, simpler ingredients, flavor complexity. Fermentation-associated bioactives. First practical point. Natural cheese can be made to melt like processed cheese. Add a small amount of sodium citrate during melting. The result is smooth and glossy. This replicates processed cheese melt without preservatives, artificial colorants, or excess sodium. Cheese sauces and melted toppings can all be made from natural cheese, taking 2 extra minutes. Second practical point. Substituting natural for processed cheese is a high-impact single change. 2 ingredients versus 15 to 20. The same function, very different composition. 2 processed slices replaced daily with natural cheddar reduces weekly sodium by 2,500–3,500 milligrams. Third practical point. Per serving cost of block natural cheese versus processed is often comparable. Fourth practical point. Natural cheddar melted in a covered pan for 30 seconds works for burgers. Natural cheese melt has more texture variation, less uniform, but entirely acceptable at home. The natural cheese category offers meaningful variation in sodium, fat, and flavor. Fresh mozzarella and Swiss-style cheeses contain significantly less sodium than aged cheddar. Fifth practical point. Use sodium per serving as your primary evaluation metric in the cheese category. In the cheese category, higher sodium per serving generally indicates more processing. 5 actions. Substitute natural for processed. Use sodium labeling. Use sodium citrate when needed. Compare cost per serving. Explore lower sodium natural cheese varieties like fresh mozzarella. Canada's 2022 front-of-pack system requires high sodium indicators on products exceeding 15% daily value. Most processed cheese slices would trigger the high sodium indicator under this labeling framework. Processed cheese is a microcosm of the modern food system. A naturally produced ingredient transformed for consistency at the cost of nutritional simplicity. Derived from natural cheese and equivalent to natural cheese are different claims. Processed cheese is derived from natural cheese. It is not nutritionally equivalent. Summary. Processed cheese is heated natural cheese plus emulsifying salts, water, and additives. Higher sodium, a full additive system, and an ultra-processed food classification. The outcome this investigation aims for a more informed decision in the dairy aisle. The dairy section contains products from minimally processed whole foods to highly engineered products. Navigating it with a clear framework makes the choice easier. Natural cheese, in appropriate amounts as part of a varied diet, is nutritionally satisfying. Replacing processed with natural cheese in a child's daily lunch is a small, consistent substitution. Individual substitutions aggregate to population-level sodium reduction when adopted broadly. Food literacy, understanding what food contains and how it is made, supports sustainable improvement. Labeling researchers argue current formats technically disclose everything, but not in ways consumers use. Research finds most consumers do not distinguish natural from processed cheese from current labels. Across this series, a common theme. The gap between marketing and actual content is consistent. The 4 foods share a pattern. Highly marketed, with health framing that obscures the ingredient reality. The information environment most consumers navigate has been significantly shaped by commercial interests. Grocery science is built on the scientific literature, an alternative to marketing-driven information, choosing from knowledge rather than from marketing. Small, quiet, entirely within reach. Subscribing to Grocery Science ensures you receive each new evidence-based food investigation. Coming up, protein powders, what they contain, and what the research says about supplementation. And processed meat Powell, the chemistry of curing, nitrates, and what the WHO classification actually means. The cheese is real. The aging is real. The flavor is real. And now you know what the wrapper is real about too. This investigation is complete. The sources are listed. The evidence has been presented honestly. The dairy aisle looks the same as before. But now you see it differently.